Elena chose that moment, precisely 11 p.m., to make her grand entrance into my study. She swayed slightly, the scent of too much champagne preceding her like a herald, almost, but not quite, masking the far more offensive aroma of Bleu de Chanel. David's signature, the very bottle I'd bought him last Christmas, convincing myself it was a sophisticated gesture between friends. The irony, sharp and bitter, lodged itself in my throat. "Marcus, darling," she cooed, her voice a little too bright as she thrust her sleek laptop at me. "I desperately need you. Urgently." The device landed on my already cluttered desk with a thud that felt disproportionately final. "These anniversary vows for tomorrow?" she continued, her eyes gleaming with a feverish intensity. "They need to be transcendent, absolutely perfect. You know how I am about these things, darling, like something out of a movie. You're the writer in the family, after all. So write. Make them sing, Marcus. Make them weep. Happy tears, of course, from everyone." Her sapphire silk dress, a deep, lustrous blue I'd once adored, shimmered under the lamplight, now just another expensive prop in her elaborate charade. And David's cologne, clinging to the expensive fabric, wasn't just a betrayal. It was a territorial marking, a blatant he was here, with her, as if to mock the fool still paying for the dry cleaning. "And you look tired, Marcus," she added, a throwaway line. "Don't be tired for my party." My internal voice, usually a quiet murmur of sarcastic commentary, screamed back. My money, his scent, her barefaced lies on full display. "And she wants me to script their epic love story? The unmitigated gall." That was it. The cloying sweetness of champagne, the ghost of David on her skin, her casual, queenly demands. A switch didn't just flip, it shattered. The weeks of gnawing suspicion, the sick dread, the quiet humiliations, they all coalesced, not into rage, but into a single, cold, sharp point of absolute resolve. No, not this time. This entire humiliating farce ends now, and I will be the one to write its spectacular, unforgettable ending. With that chilling decision solidifying in my gut like a shard of ice, I reached for her laptop. The screen sprang to life, revealing a document titled Our Vows Renewal. It was aggressively blank, a vast white desert where her grand romantic pronouncements were supposed to bloom. The cursor pulsed at the top, a tiny, black, insistent eye. "Perform, monkey, perform," it seemed to jeer. "Your big debut as the cuckolded wordsmith." My lips twisted into a smile that felt more like a snarl. "Of course, Elena, whatever you need." Her left hand, still adorned with the ridiculously large diamond I'd practically bankrupted myself for 3 years ago, tapped an impatient rhythm on the polished wood of my desk. I remembered agonizing with old Mr. Abernathy, the jeweler, over every facet, every detail, sketching designs, wanting it to be a symbol of, well, something that clearly no longer existed. He'd called our collaborative design a true testament to enduring devotion. If he only knew. The ring caught the focused beam of my desk lamp, scattering tiny, sharp daggers of light across the darkened study. 3 years ago, that ring was supposed to symbolize forever. Now it just felt like another expensive lie I was subsidizing. "It needs to be deeply personal, Marcus," she added, her voice dreamy, completely oblivious to the shrapnel tearing through me. "Something that speaks to our unique journey. All the ups and downs, you know, but mostly the ups. Keep it light. Focus on the fairy tale, darling. Make it shine, like our love." Our unique journey? I thought. The sarcasm a bitter taste. The one where you take a scenic detour through my supposed best friend's king-size bed while I'm funding your goddamn fairy tale? Oh, this will be personal, Elena. Uniquely so. Your shining love is about to get a very public fact check. My hands, surprisingly steady now, moved to the keyboard. The earlier tremor of shock and helpless rage had been entirely supplanted by that cold, crystalline fury. There was no hesitation as I began to type, not the saccharine lies she so arrogantly expected, but the hard, ugly truths I was now grimly determined to expose. The first line wasn't about undying love, but about itemized ledgers and inconvenient dates. Let's start with the financials, shall we, darling? My inner voice purred with malicious delight. The charming little boutique hotel rooms you favored, the thoughtful, undoubtedly expensive gifts for your lover, also meticulously and foolishly documented on our joint credit card statement. My mind raced with an almost manic clarity, cataloging months of her casual deceit, her badly whispered phone calls when she thought I was out of earshot, David's increasingly smug glances during our now excruciatingly awkward dinners. Each memory was another nail I would gleefully hammer into the coffin of their sordid affair, and her precious, pristine reputation. "This is actually flowing quite beautifully, Elena," I commented, my voice as smooth as polished ice, a chilling counterpoint to the venomous accusations I was meticulously typing onto the page. Truly inspired. You simply won't believe how evocative it's all becoming. It really captures the essence. She beamed, clearly misinterpreting my newfound composure as enthusiastic compliance. "Wonderful. I knew you'd understand the gravity of the occasion." Then came the timetable, delivered with the casual authority of a queen addressing a particularly dim-witted courtier. "The party, Marcus, is tomorrow, 2 o'clock sharp, Riverside Country Club, and I absolutely expect you." Her voice dropped, losing any hint of faux sweetness and gaining that familiar, steely edge that always set my teeth on edge. Not to make me look stupid, or God forbid boring. Not in front of my parents who are flying in for this, for heaven's sake. Not in front of the Jacksons, or Cynthia Albright's entire blasted book club. Can you even imagine the ensuing gossip if things aren't absolutely perfect? Are we absolutely crystal clear on this point? This is my celebration, Marcus. Mine, and it needs to be flawless. "Oh, it's your celebration, all right," I thought, the coldness in my chest spreading. "And I'm just the ghostwriter for your vanity project, the stage manager for your lies, and the sucker who foots every last bill." The names on that gilded guest list paraded mockingly through my mind, each one a carefully cultivated step on her social ladder, now soon to be a spectator at her very public, very messy implosion. Her meticulously constructed facade, built upon the shaky foundations of my rapidly evaporating patience and her spectacular ongoing deceit, was about to be audited. Publicly. Irreversibly. I forced a smile, the kind that didn't quite reach my eyes, but was apparently convincing enough for a woman several champagne flutes deep into her evening of self-congratulation. "Crystal clear, Elena," I said, my voice a carefully constructed echo of calm reassurance. "Wouldn't dream of anything less. It will be everything you imagine, seamless, touching. Not a dry eye in the house, I promise." I even gave a little nod, as if sealing the pact, the dutiful husband ready to burn the midnight oil for her moment in the sun. But beneath the veneer of compliance, the cold fury hummed, a vibrant, predatory thing, as she finally turned, supremely confident in my servitude, and wafted out of the study, leaving only the ghost of expensive champagne and cheap treachery in her wake. My fingers returned to the keyboard with renewed, grim purpose. "Oh, I'll be adding something all right," I thought, a humorless smirk playing on my lips. My mind was already racing, composing not vows of love, but a very specific, very damning series of footnotes. Footnotes that would rewrite their entire narrative, live, and in front of everyone she was so desperate to impress. The cursor still blinked on the screen, but now it felt less like mockery and more like a starting pistol, patiently awaiting the first words of their richly deserved downfall. The party was indeed tomorrow at 2 p.m., and it would be, I vowed silently to the suddenly complicit shadows in the room, utterly unforgettable. The moment Elena's perfumed presence finally vacated my study, leaving behind only the lingering scent of her audacity and David's cologne, I snatched up my phone. My thumb hovered over Sarah Chen's name. Midnight. Not the ideal time to call your divorce attorney, even if she was technically my sister-in-law and owed me a colossal favor from that messy insider trading accusation she'd skated on a few years back, thanks to some discreet inquiries I'd made. But this wasn't a situation that could wait for office hours. My earlier, vague resolve had now crystallized into a concrete, actionable plan. The vows were just the delivery mechanism. Sarah was the ordinance. Her voice, when she finally answered on the fourth ring, was thick with sleep and understandable irritation. "Marcus? What in God's name? Do you know what time it is?" "Sarah, apologies for the hour, truly," I said, my voice low and urgent, cutting straight to the chase. "But this is critical. I need 2 things from you, and I need them by tomorrow. First, a separation agreement. Ironclad. No loopholes. Standard asset division for now, we can fight over the nuances later, but I want something solid drafted by morning. Second, I need you at the Riverside Country Club tomorrow afternoon. Party starts at 2. Be there by 1:30 if you can. And bring a witness, a process server. Whatever you need to make it official and public." There was a stunned silence on the other end, then a sharp intake of breath. "A separation agreement? Marcus, are you serious? You and Elena?" The sleepiness was gone, replaced by professional alertness tinged with familial shock. "What happened? Last I heard you were planning an anniversary party, not a divorce." "The party is still happening, Sarah," I replied, a grim smile touching my lips that she couldn't see. "Think of it as a multi-purpose event. The less you know about the why right now, the better, probably. Plausible deniability and all that. But trust me, it's necessary. And it's happening fast. The favor, Sarah? I'm calling it in. All of it." Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear the calculations whirring in her sharp legal mind, the implications, the potential fallout, the sheer deliciousness of the scandal from a safe distance. "Riverside Country Club, you said? That's a very public venue for serving papers, Marcus. Are you sure you want to play it this way?" "Oh, I'm sure, Sarah," I said, the cold fury from earlier now a steady, energizing hum in my veins. "Elena is very concerned about appearances, about not looking stupid in front of everyone. I'm merely ensuring she gets the memorable event she deserves. Can you do it? Or do I need to find someone who can by sunrise?" No, I can do it," she said quickly, the challenge in my tone striking the right chord. "A separation agreement by morning. My presence, +1, at the club. Consider it done, but Marcus—" Her voice softened slightly. "Are you okay? This is a lot." "Never better, Sarah," I lied smoothly. "Just finally decided to do some long overdue housekeeping. Send me a confirmation when you have a draft. And thank you." I hung up before she could ask any more questions, a crucial piece of my plan now firmly in motion. The die was cast. I was meticulously reviewing the preliminary notes I'd already jotted down for Elena's revised vows when the bathroom door creaked open. Elena emerged, wrapped in a fluffy white towel, another smaller one turbaned around her wet hair. She looked flushed and relaxed from her shower, the earlier tension from her party-planning demands seemingly washed away. For a horrifying second, a wave of the old, familiar pattern threatened to surface, the desire to smooth things over, to maintain the peace, however illusory. but the image of David's cologne on her dress, the echo of Sarah's surprised voice, snuffed it out like a candle. "You're still up?" she asked, wandering over to my desk, peering at the screen with a casualness that grated on my raw nerves. "Goodness, Marcus, don't tell me you're actually taking this vow thing seriously enough to pull an all-nighter. I mean, they need to be good, but it's not like you're carving them in stone." I forced a non-committal smile. "Just want to make sure they're perfect, sweetheart, as you requested." Good," she murmured, then paused, a thoughtful, almost calculating look entering her eyes. "Oh, while you're at it, there's something specific I want you to include. Something important." She leaned closer, her breath now smelling of minty toothpaste and lingering champagne. "You know how David was such a rock for us last year? During that, well, our rough patch. My blood ran cold. Our rough patch was her euphemism for the 6 months she'd become distant and secretive, the same 6 months I now suspected that her affair with David had begun in earnest. And he had been around more, it was true, playing the concerned friend to me, while undoubtedly playing something entirely different with her. The sheer, unadulterated audacity of her request almost made me laugh out loud. It was like a murderer asking for a glowing character reference from the victim's family. "I want you to make sure you mention him," she continued, completely oblivious to the Javalamukhi erupting behind my carefully blank expression. Specifically, how his friendship and support helped us navigate that difficult time. How he was instrumental in keeping us together, in helping us find our way back to each other. It'll be such a lovely, heartfelt tribute to him, don't you think? He'll be so touched. And it'll show everyone how strong our circle of friendship is." She beamed, clearly pleased with her magnanimous idea. "Make it poignant, Marcus. Really lay it on thick." "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, my voice a silken caress that belied the Arctic storm raging within. What a truly thoughtful idea. David has been such an invaluable friend to us both, hasn't he? Especially to you. It's only right that his contributions are properly acknowledged. My fingers, which had momentarily frozen over the keyboard at her outrageous suggestion, began to fly again, not with the poetic platitudes she envisioned, but with a renewed, savage inspiration for the actual script I was preparing for tomorrow's drama. "Oh, I'll mention David, all right," I thought, a vicious smile playing on my lips that she, busy admiring her reflection in the darkened computer screen, thankfully didn't see. His role in our rough patch will be highlighted with excruciating detail. His support in helping you navigate your way into his bed will be given the prominence it so richly deserves. "He's doing a toast, Elena added, oblivious. "So it'll be a lovely symmetry. Your vows mentioning his help, and then him toasting to our happiness. Perfect." "Perfect," I echoed, my tone dripping with an irony so thick it was practically tangible, yet it sailed right over her perfectly coiffed head. "His toast will be the eulogy for your social life, my dear. And my vows? They will be the indictment." I started a new section in my document, titling it Exhibit A, The Unwavering Support of David Miller, a Case Study in Betrayal. Underneath, I began to list dates, times, locations gleaned from a discreet dive into our shared phone records and credit card statements earlier in the week, a dive prompted by a wrong number text on her phone that had been anything but. The row patch suddenly had a very clear, very soared kilometers timeline. The help David provided was itemized in hotel bills and late-night calls. Each tap of the keyboard was a hammer blow, constructing not just vows, but a meticulously documented scaffold from which her reputation would soon hang. My fury was a powerful stimulant. The words flowed with an almost preternatural ease, each one dripping with sarcasm and cold, hard facts. This wouldn't just be a footnote. It would be a goddamn appendix of her perfidy. As Elena finally drifted off to bed, humming a happy little tune, supremely confident that her perfect anniversary party was well in hand, I pulled out my phone again. This time, I opened the digital invitation for Marcus and Elena's 10th anniversary vow renewal and celebration. My finger scrolled down the guest list, a veritable who's who of our slice of the city's social scene. 200 names, 200 pairs of eyes that would be watching. There was Elena's boss, Mr. Henderson, the CEO of the marketing firm where she was so desperate to make partner, a promotion that hinged heavily on her image as a stable, well-connected socialite. Her parents, naturally, flying in from Florida, pillars of their own community, always so proud of their perfect daughter and her charming husband. David's parents, too, blissfully unaware of their son's extracurricular activities with his best friend's wife. Then there were the battalions of so-called friends, the tennis club set, the charity gala circuit, the book club ladies Elena was so keen to impress, every minor socialite and business acquaintance whose good opinion she cultivated with the same meticulous care she applied to her designer wardrobe. Each name on that list represented another potential casualty in the blast radius of the truth bomb I was about to detonate. The humiliation wouldn't just be Elena's, it would be a shared public spectacle. The whispers, the sideways glances, the sheer, unadulterated scandal of it all. It would be the talk of the town for months, if not years. A part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I'd once loved, felt a fleeting pang of something akin to pity. But it was quickly extinguished by the fresh wave of her earlier demand to eulogize David's friendship. She had personally handed me the dynamite and the matches. It would be almost rude not to light the fuse. The Riverside Country Club, with its manicured lawns and opulent ballroom, the chosen stage for her triumphant celebration of a decade of our love, would instead become the backdrop for her spectacular, very public downfall. And I, the quiet, unassuming husband, the one everyone took for granted, would be the orchestrator of it all. The thought sent a shiver of grim satisfaction through me. 200 guests. Let the show begin. Sleep had been a pointless luxury. As the first faint fingers of dawn painted the eastern sky in bruised shades of purple and gray, I was already on the move. The city was still hushed, shrouded in that pre-sunrise calm that always felt both peaceful and vaguely ominous. This morning, it leaned heavily towards the latter. I'd spent the last few hours after Sarah's call not on Elena's sham vows, but on meticulously curating a digital package for one David Miller, my soon-to-be ex-best friend. It contained a carefully selected portfolio of evidence, scanned hotel receipts with his familiar scrawl for room service, damning screenshots of overly familiar text exchanges between him and Elena that she'd foolishly thought deleted, even a short, grainy video clip from a traffic cam near a known trysting spot that, while not showing anything explicit, placed his car and Elena's together at a very suspicious time on a day I was supposedly out of town. All of it was now loaded onto a sleek, anonymous USB drive. I drove through the empty streets, the city slowly waking around me, my resolve a cold, hard knot in my stomach. David lived in one of those offensively modern glass and steel penthouse monstrosities downtown, a monument to his ego and, I suspected, a frequently used stage for his infidelities. Parking a block away, I approached his building on foot, the USB drive feeling like a small, dense weight in my pocket. The lobby was deserted, the night doorman probably asleep in his little booth. I took the service elevator, no need for witnesses, up to his floor. The hallway was silent, carpeted in a plush gray that absorbed the sound of my footsteps. His door, number 27B, was imposing and anonymous. I slipped the USB drive into a plain white envelope. Inside, with the drive, was a single, crisply printed note. David, check your email. Urgent, before the party. M. No threats, no accusations. Just a simple, chilling instruction. I slid the envelope under his door. A tiny whisper of paper on carpet, and turned away. The first part of my counter-move complete. The email I'd scheduled to send at 7 a.m. contained a link to a secure cloud folder with copies of everything on the USB, plus a few extra, more personal, digital tidbits I'd uncovered. He'd have options for how he received the bad news. The drive back to my own house felt different. The sun was beginning to climb, casting long shadows, and the city was stirring to life. I felt a grim sense of accomplishment, the cold fury now sharpened by a surgeon's precision. Phase 1 of the offensive was launched. Now, I just had to wait for the inevitable detonation. It didn't take long. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter at precisely 8:03 a.m., just as I was pouring myself a much-needed coffee. Caller ID, David, right on schedule. I let it ring 3 times, savoring the small, petty power play, before answering with a deliberately cheerful, almost casual tone. David, good morning, buddy. To what do I owe the honor this bright and early? I could almost hear his ragged breathing on the other end. His voice, when it finally came, was a cracked, strangled whisper, galaxies away from his usual confident baritone. Marcus, Christ, Marcus, we need to talk. Right now. Urgently. Talk? I feigned surprise, taking a slow sip of my coffee. About what, old friend? Don't tell me you're getting cold feet about your best man speech already. Elena mentioned you're doing the toast at the party this afternoon. She said you were working on something really special, something from the heart. Hope it's not too schmaltzy. You know how I feel about public displays of excessive sentiment. I let the pause hang, heavy and suffocating, picturing him pacing his overpriced penthouse, the contents of that envelope or that email burning a hole in his conscience. Or perhaps, I added, my voice like velvet over steel, you've misplaced your cufflinks? Always happy to help a friend in need. The speech? No, Marcus, for God's sake, it's not. It's not about the damn speech. His voice rose, cracking with a panic that was music to my ears. It's the email you sent. The USB drive. I got it. I saw it. A choked sound, something between a sob and a gasp. The photos, Marcus, the messages. Oh God, Marcus, the photos. How long have you known? How long have you been sitting on this? What in God's name are you planning to do? Photos? I kept my voice infuriatingly calm, a study in feigned innocence. What photos would those be, David? Are you having some sort of early morning episode? Perhaps you're still drunk from last night. You know you always were a lightweight. I took another deliberate sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch, amplifying his rising terror. Known what, exactly, buddy? I finally continued, my tone dropping the false bonhomie and hardening into something cold and lethal. That you've been enthusiastically, and rather athletically, I must say, violating the sanctity of my marriage with my wife, your best friend's wife? Is that what you're referring to? Or perhaps you mean the charming, little-known fact that you've been enjoying romantic weekend getaways in those delightful boutique hotel rooms, all conveniently and quite stupidly billed to our joint credit card, the statements for which, funnily enough, come to me? He was babbling now. Marcus, I don't... It's not... Or maybe, I pressed on, relentless. You're concerned about the rather detailed call logs between your phone and Elena's at all hours of the night? Those affectionate little text messages you two thought were so cleverly concealed? The ones where you call her my lioness, and she calls you my Adonis? Truly touching stuff, David, worthy of the vows Elena wants me to write. I paused, letting the weight of my knowledge crush him. So, to which specific, egregious transgression are you referring, buddy? I've rather lost track, you see. There have been so many, it's become a veritable catalogue of clandestine clichés. There was a long, ragged exhalation on his end, the sound of a man utterly defeated, his world crumbling around him. Okay, he finally whispered, his voice hoarse. Okay, Marcus, you know everything. I don't know what to say. I am so sorry, more than you can possibly imagine. Oh, I can imagine quite a bit, David, I replied, my voice devoid of any warmth. My imagination has been working overtime for weeks now, filling in the blanks your and Elena's rather sloppy operational security left wide open. Listen to me, Marcus, please, he pleaded, a desperate edge to his tone. This is a cataclysm, I know that. I messed up. We both did. Elena and I, we made a terrible, terrible mistake. There's no excuse, I'm not trying to make one. But Marcus, this doesn't have to destroy everything. It doesn't have to destroy everyone involved. We're adults, aren't we? Supposedly. We can work this out. We can talk this through, find some kind of solution, contain the damage. Please, man, don't do this. Don't blow everything up at the party this afternoon. Think about Elena. Think about her parents. Think about your reputation. Our friendship. I actually let out a short, harsh laugh at that. Our friendship? I scoffed. That particular vessel, David, sailed months ago, probably to one of those charming little hotels you seem to be so fond of. It likely sank without a trace, torpedoed by your monumental betrayal. I paused, savoring his choked silence. Work it out like adults? An interesting proposition coming from someone who's been behaving like a rutting teenager with my wife, in my house on my dime. The time for working things out like adults, David, passed the moment you decided my marriage vows were merely optional guidelines for your conquests. My voice dropped to an icy whisper. Now is the time for consequences, painful, public, and entirely proportional to the offense. But what do you want, Marcus? He almost whimpered. Money? Is that it? I can get you money. What will it take to make this go away? Go away? I repeated, as if the concept were utterly foreign. Oh, David, this isn't going away. This is just getting started. What I want is for everyone to see the truth, to see you and to see Elena, for exactly who and what you are. No more charades, no more polite fictions. I could hear a faint sound in the background on his end, like glass shattering. Perhaps he'd dropped his phone or thrown something. Good. Enjoy the party this afternoon, David, I said softly. You have a rather prominent speaking role, as I recall. Make it memorable. I know I will. I ended the call then, cutting off his sputtering, desperate protests, the silence in my kitchen suddenly feeling vast and filled with a terrible, thrilling anticipation. The morning sun, now fully risen, streamed through my kitchen window, casting golden stripes across the granite countertop. It was a beautiful, crisp autumn day, the kind of day that usually filled me with a quiet sense of well-being. Today, however, the beauty of it felt like a sardonic counterpoint to the ugliness I was about to unleash. From upstairs, I heard the distinct sound of the shower running in our master bathroom, followed a few minutes later by Elena's voice, humming a cheerful, off-key little tune. It was one of her favorite pop songs, something about a love that would last forever. The irony was so thick, so grotesquely perfect, it was almost comical. She was completely, blissfully unaware that her perfectly planned day, her triumphant 10th anniversary celebration, was teetering on the edge of an abyss. She was probably picking out which dress would best showcase her radiance, mentally rehearsing her gracious thank yous, envisioning the adoring glances of our 200 guests. Her world, so carefully curated, so flawlessly presented, was about to implode with the force of a controlled demolition. And I was the one with my finger on the trigger. The calm I felt was absolute, the cold fire of my resolve burning with a steady, unwavering flame. The countdown had begun. The house was a hive of carefully orchestrated chaos. It was 1:30 p.m., T-minus 30 minutes until we were supposed to leave for the Riverside Country Club. Florists were making last-minute adjustments to the extravagant arrangements that were already en route to the venue, their hushed, professional tones a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. Elena, a vision in a silk dressing gown that probably cost more than my first car, was flitting between her makeup artist and hairstylist, a flute of champagne already in her hand, her laughter tinkling through the upstairs rooms like fragile glass. I was in our bedroom, ostensibly adjusting my tie for the 10th time, but actually watching her. A predatory stillness coiled deep inside me. The Vows, my meticulously crafted tapestry of her deceit, lay on the antique writing desk in the corner of our room, printed on the same expensive cream-colored cardstock she'd chosen for the original invitations. I hadn't hidden them, but I hadn't made them obvious either. I just left the folder, innocuously labeled Vows Final M and E, where she was bound to see it when she came to inspect my readiness. "Marcus, are you even listening?" Her voice, sharp with pre-party jitters, cut through my reverie. She swept into the room, a whirlwind of perfume and nervous energy, already mostly transformed into the radiant anniversary queen. "The car will be here in 20 minutes, and you're still fiddling with that tie like it's a Rubik's Cube. Are the vows ready? Did you print them? I want to glance over them one last time." She spotted the folder. "Ah, there they are. Let me see." Before I could utter a word, not that I intended to stop her, she snatched up the pages, a self-satisfied smile already forming on her lips, anticipating the romantic poetry she believed I'd dutifully concocted. Her smile froze, then slowly curdled into an expression of utter disbelief as her eyes scanned the first page. The heading, in an elegant script font, read, "Our Sacred Vows Renewed. A testament to 10 years of shifting allegiances and creative accounting." Her breath hitched. "Marcus, what is this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, her eyes flicking up to mine, wide with a dawning, horrified comprehension. These aren't the vows." "Oh, but they are, Elena," I replied, my voice calm, almost gentle, which only seemed to heighten her alarm. "My vows, my perspective on our last 10 years, particularly the last one. Read on, my dear. It gets more illuminating." Her hands began to shake, the heavy cardstock rattling softly. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her gaze glued to the pages. I watched as the color drained from her face, replaced by a sickly, mottled pallor. Page after page, she turned them, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. There was no poetry, no romantic fluff. Instead, under mock solemn headings like "My solemn promise to continue overlooking financial discrepancies, within reason," and "A pledge to explore new avenues of communication, primarily with my lawyer," was a detailed, bullet-pointed timeline of her affair. It started with suspicious credit card charges. Item: 2 business dinners at Le Charmant Bistro. Table for 2, champagne, oysters. Dates coinciding with Marcus's quarterly business trips. Then came the text message excerpts, time-stamped and attributed. Elena to David, 2:17 a.m. He's asleep, missing you, need you. David to Elena, 2:19 a.m. My lioness, soon, dream of me. I'd even included a small, discreetly placed photograph beneath that exchange, A slightly blurry but undeniable shot of them leaving a downtown hotel together, David's arm possessively around her waist, Elena laughing up at him. A picture I'd paid a private investigator a significant sum for just last week. My final piece of irrefutable proof. "Marcus," she finally choked out, her voice trembling, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and rising fury. These hotel receipts, these messages. Where did you get this? This is insane! You're insane!" Am I? I tilted my head. Or am I merely thorough? You wanted personal, Elena. This is about as personal as it gets, wouldn't you agree? I gestured to a section titled, "An Ode to My Dearest Friend, David, Companion, Confidant, Co-Respondent." Underneath, it detailed his support during our rough patch, cross-referencing his visits to our home, with Elena's private calendar entries simply marked. You spied on me?" she hissed, her eyes narrowing, the shock giving way to a desperate, cornered rage. "You went through my phone, my things? This is a violation." "A violation?" I raised an eyebrow. An interesting choice of words, considering the subject matter. Let's call it due diligence. The kind a husband undertakes when his wife starts smelling of another man's cologne, and developing a sudden, inexplicable fondness for late-night yoga classes across town. I watched her face crumple, then harden again. The makeup artist's careful work was beginning to show faint cracks around her eyes. "You expected sonnets, Elena? I'm offering you a spreadsheet of your indiscretions, a very detailed, very factual spreadsheet, with exhibits. I thought it was more us." The silence in the room was thick, broken only by her ragged breathing and the distant, oblivious trill of the hairstylist humming downstairs. She looked down at the last page, which was a mock benediction, wishing them both well in their future endeavors, with a footnote detailing the estimated cost of the affair to our joint finances. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the pages. You won't read this. Not at the party, Marcus, you wouldn't dare." "Dare?" I echoed, my voice dangerously soft. "Oh, Elena, I think you'll find that daring is my new middle name. As for reading these vows, you're absolutely right. I won't be reading these specific, beautifully printed pages at the party." A flicker of desperate hope sparked in her eyes. I let it linger for a moment before extinguishing it. "No, these are just your copy, a little keepsake. The version I'll be reading is already loaded onto a PowerPoint presentation, with visuals. Much more engaging for a large audience, don't you think?" Her face went ashen. "And as for daring," I continued, my voice hardening, "let me be perfectly clear. In approximately 6 hours, around 7:30 this evening, after the canapes have been cleared and just before the band is scheduled to play your favorite Sinatra medley, you, my dear, will be signing a separation agreement. Sarah Chen, my lawyer, your sister-in-law, in case you'd forgotten in the thrill of your extracurricular activities, will be there with all the necessary paperwork. She's bringing a notary and a process server, just to ensure everything is above board and irrefutably official." Her jaw dropped. A separation agreement? Tonight? At our anniversary party? Marcus, have you lost your goddamn mind? You're going to humiliate me, humiliate us in front of everyone we know? Our parents? My boss?" "Precisely," I confirmed, nodding slowly. "You were so concerned about not looking stupid, remember? I'm simply ensuring the narrative is accurate. You wanted a memorable 10th anniversary, Elena. Believe me, this one will be legendary. It will be the party everyone talks about for decades, the day the truth finally came out to play in front of a captive audience of 200 of your closest friends and associates." I gestured vaguely towards the window, as if encompassing the unsuspecting city. "Consider it performance art. A public uncoupling, far more honest than a public renewal of vows that are nothing but a string of pretty hollow lies." You monster!" she choked out, tears finally beginning to well in her eyes, black mascara starting to trace damning paths down her carefully constructed mask of bridal perfection. "You absolute, vindictive bastard! You would destroy everything, our entire lives, just for revenge." "Revenge is such an ugly word, Elena," I chided gently. "I prefer to think of it as a radical commitment to transparency, a course correction. You and David wrote a rather tawdry little melodrama. I'm just giving it the spectacular public climax it deserves." 6 hours, Elena. The clock is ticking. I suggest you use the time to compose yourself. You wouldn't want to look flustered when you're signing away half of everything you thought was yours. Her face was a maelstrom of emotions: fury, fear, disbelief, and a dawning, terrible understanding of just how thoroughly I had planned this. The Queen was, for the first time in a very long time, speechless. She finally found her voice, but it was different now, laced with a venomous defiance, her earlier terror momentarily eclipsed by a desperate attempt to wound me, to reclaim some sliver of control. "You think you're so clever, Marcus, don't you?" she spat, her eyes blazing with a fresh wave of fury, pushing herself up from the bed, the damning pages scattering to the floor around her like fallen leaves. "You think you've won? You think this elaborate, cruel little scheme of yours actually means anything?" She advanced on me, her silk dressing gown swirling around her like a battle flag. "Well, let me tell you something, you cold, pathetic man. David and I, we're in love, do you hear me? In love. We have been for months, long before you probably even noticed anything was wrong, lost in your spreadsheets and your self-importance." I stood my ground, my expression unreadable, though her words, intended as daggers, glanced off the icy armor of my resolve. Inside, however, a small, old wound throbbed. The ghost of the man who had once loved her, the man she had so carelessly betrayed. "This isn't some tawdry little affair like you're painting it, you sanctimonious prick," she raged on, her voice rising in pitch perilously close to a shriek. "This is real. What David and I have is passionate. It's alive. It's everything that we haven't been for years, if we ever truly were. He sees me, Marcus. He desires me. He makes me feel like a woman, not like some damned fixture in your perfectly ordered, perfectly boring life." "Is that your justification, Elena?" I asked, my voice quiet, but carrying an edge that made her falter for a split second. "That your profound, earth-shattering love for my best friend gives you a free pass to lie, to cheat, to steal from our shared life. You dress it up in the language of romance, but it's the oldest, sorriest cliché in the book. You got bored, you wanted excitement, and you were too cowardly and too selfish to end one chapter before starting another." "Cowardly?" She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "You're the coward, Marcus, hiding behind your meticulously planned revenge, too afraid to confront me like a man, to fight for your marriage. You just plotted, like some kind of Machiavellian accountant." "Fight for what, Elena?" I countered, my patience wearing thin. "For the right to be further humiliated? For the privilege of watching you lie to my face day after day? There was nothing left to fight for. You and David burned that bridge, then danced on the ashes. And as for confronting you, I believe that's precisely what's happening now. And it will continue, very publicly, in a few short hours." I glanced at my watch. 1:28. The car will be here soon. I suggest you pull yourself together. Or don't. Frankly, a tear-streaked, hysterical bride signing divorce papers might be even more memorable. Adds a certain je ne sais quoi to the proceedings. Her declaration of love, meant to be her trump card, her final, wounding blow, had achieved nothing but to solidify my contempt. The reversal she sought was not forthcoming. The only reversal happening today was the complete and utter implosion of her carefully constructed world. The transition from the hushed, anticipatory drive to the vibrant chaos of the Riverside Country Club was jarring. But I moved through it like a man on a holy mission. It was exactly 2 p.m. Guests, 200 strong, were already mingling on the sun-drenched terrace, champagne flutes in hand, the air alive with laughter and polite society chatter. The string quartet, bless their hearts, was playing something light and forgettable by Vivaldi. I spotted the outdoor lectern and microphone set up near the ornate balustrade, overlooking the perfectly manicured golf course, just as I'd requested from the event manager, under the guise of wanting to make a heartfelt, spontaneous toast. My heart was a cold, steady drum against my ribs. This was it. Showtime. With a polite nod to a bewildered-looking waiter, from whom I smoothly commandeered the microphone, I strode onto the slightly raised flagstone platform. A smattering of applause broke out, quickly becoming more general as heads turned. I saw Elena at the specially designated head table near the French doors leading into the ballroom. Her face, already pale and strained from our earlier confrontation, went utterly white. She shot bolt upright, her carefully constructed composure shattering. "Marcus, no!" Her voice was a strangled cry, quickly lost in the renewed applause. "Stop him! Someone stop him! You can't do this!" She made a desperate lunge, intending, no doubt, to physically prevent me from speaking. But David, seated beside her looking like a man about to face a firing squad, grabbed her arm, his face a mask of grim resignation. His grip was firm, his expression a silent plea for her to recognize the inevitable. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed friends, beloved family." My voice, amplified by the microphone, boomed across the terrace, instantly silencing the chatter and drawing all eyes to me. The string quartet faltered, then fell silent. I offered the assembled crowd my most charming, disarming smile. "Welcome. Elena and I are so deeply touched, truly overcome, that you've all chosen to share this incredibly special day with us. 10 years. A remarkable milestone, wouldn't you agree? A full decade of shared dreams, abundant laughter, perhaps a few quiet tears along the way, and always, always unwavering support for one another." I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the sea of expectant faces, many of them beaming back at me, completely oblivious. I saw Elena's parents in the front row, her mother dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, her father looking proud. Perfect. "Today," I continued, my voice resonating with feigned sincerity, "we have chosen to renew those sacred promises we made to each other all those years ago. And we wanted you, our cherished community, our dearest friends and family, to be here, to bear witness to our enduring commitment, to the strength of a bond that has not only weathered the storms, but has, we believe, grown stronger with each passing year. So, without further ado, let us commence with the reaffirmation of our vows." I gave another benign smile, as if this were the most normal, heartwarming event imaginable. From the corner of my eye, I saw Elena still struggling silently in David's grasp, her face contorted in a silent scream of rage and desperation. "Marcus, I swear to God, don't you dare do this," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper that didn't carry beyond their table, but was clearly visible in the tension of her body. "You'll regret this for the rest of your miserable life. David, for God's sake, do something! Stop him!" David, however, merely shook his head, his eyes hollow, his grip on her arm tightening almost imperceptibly. "Elena, stop!" I could just barely make out his low, urgent murmur, his voice thick with despair. "Please, it's too late. He knows. He knows everything. Just don't make it any worse than it already is." His words seemed to deflate her slightly, a flicker of utter hopelessness crossing her features before being consumed again by impotent fury. He understood at least the futility of resistance. The trap had been too well laid. The damage, as he so rightly perceived, was already irrevocably in motion. The guests, meanwhile, were shifting in their seats, a pleasant hum of anticipation rippling through them, ready for the sentimental display they'd come to expect. "Ah," I said into the microphone, affecting a slight, indulgent chuckle. "It seems my beautiful bride is a little overcome with emotion. Quite understandable, of course. These moments are so powerful, aren't they? So deeply moving." I gave Elena a pointed, almost pitying look, which only seemed to stoke her silent fury. "Now," I continued, turning back to the audience, my tone becoming confiding, almost conspiratorial. "Elena, in her infinite thoughtfulness and with her characteristic flair for the romantic, actually penned the core of these renewed vows herself some time ago. A truly beautiful foundation, I must say." I paused, letting that sink in, knowing she'd be aghast at me giving her credit for the travesty that was to come. She merely asked me, as her devoted and ever-adoring husband, to add a few personal touches. A few reflections from my own heart, you understand, to truly make them resonate with the depth of our shared experience. And I sincerely believe, ladies and gentlemen, that you will all find these additions particularly illuminating. I allowed a small, enigmatic smile to play on my lips. "Shall we begin?" I gestured with a flourish to the large, white projector screen that had been discreetly set up to one side, ostensibly for a photo montage of our happy years later in the reception. The technician I'd hired, a young man completely unknown to Elena or her society friends, gave me a subtle thumbs up from his station. The projector screen behind me flickered to life, not with a loving portrait, but with a crisp, high-resolution image of a hotel receipt. The Marriott Grand, room 1208. Dates and times clearly visible. A charge for champagne and strawberries. The collective intake of breath from 200 guests was a soft, whooshing sound, like the tide suddenly receding. "Ah, yes," I said, clearing my throat theatrically as I consulted the papers in my hand, my annotated script. "The first pledge. How fitting." I looked directly at Elena, whose face was now a mask of frozen horror. "Elena, my dearest," I began, my voice resonating with mock solemnity, "on this, our 10th anniversary, do you promise to continue to love, honor, and cherish our joint American Express card, specifically for its generous rewards program and its undeniable discretion, which you so expertly utilized during your frequent spiritual retreats on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons throughout this past spring and summer at the Marriott Grand downtown? The one, I believe, with the surprisingly discreet side entrance and the rather accommodating room service staff?" A low murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw Elena's mother's hand fly to her mouth. "And do you further pledge," I continued, my voice gaining strength as the next slide appeared, a screenshot of a particularly incriminating text message exchange, "to uphold the sanctity of our communication, much like you upheld the sanctity of your deleted messages folder, which, it turns out, my love, wasn't quite as sanctified, nor as deleted as you perhaps believed. Specifically, your tender exchanges with a mutual acquaintance regarding the logistical challenges of your shared passion for, and I quote, escaping reality for a few stolen hours." Elena's mother let out a distinct, audible gasp, a small, wounded sound that was quickly swallowed by the rising tide of whispers erupting throughout the stunned audience. Is that a hotel bill?" Someone near the front whispered far too loudly. "The Marriott? But isn't that where David always stays when he's in town for business?" Another voice added, laced with dawning horror and a delicious hint of scandal. I saw Elena's father's face, normally ruddy and jovial, turning a truly alarming shade of crimson, his eyes fixed on the screen with a look of pure, unadulterated fury slowly supplanting his initial shock. He looked like he might have a stroke. The evidence my meticulously compiled personal touches continued to unfold, slide by damning slide. Exhibit B showed a charming selection of those text messages, complete with endearing pet names like My Lioness and My Adonis, which elicited a fresh wave of shocked murmurs and a few poorly suppressed snickers from the younger, more cynical contingent. Exhibit C was the pièce de résistance for this opening salvo. The grainy but undeniable photograph of Elena and David leaving that very same Marriott, his arms slung possessively around her shoulders, her head thrown back in laughter, looking for all the world like a pair of triumphant, carefree lovers. "Yes, ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice cutting through the stunned silence that followed the appearance of the photograph. "As you can clearly see from this rather fetching, if somewhat artistically blurry, candid shot, the depth of Elena's commitment to extracurricular bonding with our dear friend David is truly something to behold. A testament, one might say, to her boundless energy and her remarkable ability to multitask. He was, as she so rightly wanted me to emphasize in these vows, an instrumental support during our rough patch. Quite instrumental indeed. The room was no longer merely whispering, it was practically buzzing, a shocked, titillated, horrified hum. The second strike had landed precisely on target, and the shockwaves were only just beginning to propagate. The effect of the photograph, David and Elena emerging from the Marriott like conquering heroes of infidelity, was instantaneous and devastating. A collective gasp, louder this time, rippled through the 200 assembled guests. Before the shocked murmurs could coalesce into outright uproar, Elena, her face a mask of incandescent fury, finally broke free from David's now limp grasp. With a strangled scream that was pure, unadulterated rage, she launched herself from the head table, a cheetah spotting its prey. "You bastard!" she shrieked, her perfectly applied lipstick now a grotesque smear as she contorted her face. "Give me that microphone! I won't let you do this to me!" She was surprisingly fast, her expensive heels skittering on the flagstones as she charged towards me, hands outstretched like claws, aiming for the microphone, for my face, for anything she could destroy. Simultaneously, I saw David scramble up from his chair, not towards Elena, but in the opposite direction, a desperate, panicked bolt for the nearest exit leading towards the club's interior, clearly intending to escape the rapidly escalating inferno. His retreat, however, was short-lived. Just as he reached the arched doorway, a figure stepped calmly into his path. Sarah Chen, my sister-in-law, my attorney, looking cool and formidable in a dark pantsuit. Flanking her were two burly, impassive men in dark suits who could only be security. "Not so fast, Mr. Miller." Sarah's voice cut through the rising chaos, calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of authority. "I believe there are a few people who need to have a word with you. And you, Elena," she added, as one of the security men gently but firmly intercepted Elena a mere 5 feet from me. "Might want to take a deep breath. This is far from over." Elena thrashed for a moment in the guard's hold, her shrieks now devolving into incoherent sobs of fury and frustration. "Well, well," I said into the microphone, my voice a low, dangerous purr that somehow cut through the mounting din. The guests were on their feet now, a confused, horrified, but undeniably captivated audience. "It seems the passion isn't limited to clandestine hotel rooms." I looked directly at Elena, who was now glaring at me with pure hatred, her chest heaving. "You want to make a scene, Elena? Is that it? After all your meticulous planning for this perfect day. After all your concern about appearances, you now wish to devolve into a public spectacle of screeching and flailing." I gestured expansively to the stunned crowd. "By all means, my dear. Let's make a scene. The stage is yours, though I suspect the audience might not be entirely on your side for this particular performance. Perhaps a dramatic reading of your more colorful text messages? Or would you prefer an interpretive dance of your spiritual retreats at the Marriott? Do tell. We have time." My words were like gasoline on her already raging fire. The security guard was struggling to hold her. "Don't patronize me, you smug son of a bitch!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. "You think this is clever? You think this is justice?" "He's lying!" Elena shrieked, her voice cracking, appealing now to the shocked faces in the crowd, her carefully constructed mask of the gracious hostess utterly demolished. "All of it, every single thing he's shown you, every word he's said, it's a lie! Those photos are fake. They're doctored. Can't you see what he's doing?" She gestured wildly towards me, her eyes blazing with a desperate, almost unhinged light. "Marcus is having a complete and utter mental breakdown. He's become obsessed, paranoid, vindictive. He couldn't handle that our marriage wasn't perfect." Her voice caught on a sob, a calculated quiver of manufactured vulnerability. "He's trying to destroy me because he's sick. David!" She suddenly swiveled her furious gaze towards her lover, who was now standing miserably between Sarah and the other security guard, looking like he wished the earth would swallow him whole. "David, for God's sake, tell them! Tell them he's lost his mind! Tell them none of this is true! You have to tell them!" It was a desperate gamble, an attempt to enlist her co-conspirator in her rapidly crumbling defense, to paint me as the villain, the madman. The entire terrace was silent, every eye flicking between Elena, David, and me, waiting for David's response. The air crackled with unbearable tension. David looked utterly wretched, trapped between the fury of his scorned lover, the steely gaze of my attorney, and the collective, judgmental stare of 200 people. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing convulsively. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, as if searching for words that could somehow extricate him from this nightmare. Elena was still staring at him, her eyes wide with a desperate, imploring hope. "David?" she prompted, her voice a little softer now, almost a plea. He finally looked at her, his expression a mixture of guilt, fear, and a dawning, fatalistic resignation. "Tell them what, Elena?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, yet it carried in the sudden, absolute silence. "That we were careful? That we thought we'd covered all our tracks so perfectly?" He glanced nervously at me, then back at the horrified guests. "That you specifically used the intricate details of your anniversary party planning, the multiple venue visits, the endless caterer meetings, the florist consultations, as convenient and highly plausible cover for our arrangements." He let out a shaky breath. "What exactly would you like me to tell them, Elena? The truth, the one Marcus seems to have so thoroughly documented, or the carefully curated version you were hoping would last forever?" His words, reluctant and miserable as they were, landed like a series of hammer blows, each one shattering another piece of Elena's desperate charade. He hadn't just failed to deny it, he'd actively confirmed the depth of her premeditation. A low groan rippled through the crowd. Elena looked as though David had physically struck her. "This is absolutely insane!" Elena shrieked, turning her fury back towards me, her face now blotchy and tear-streaked, her elegant chignon coming undone. "Marcus, listen to yourself. Look at what you're doing. You're not just destroying me, you're destroying your own reputation, your career, everything we built together, everything you've built." She gestured wildly to the crowd, appealing to their sense of propriety, their fear of scandal. Do you think any of these people will ever respect you again after this circus? Do you think Mr. Henderson will want a man capable of this kind of public, vindictive spectacle as a senior partner in his firm? You're committing professional suicide, Marcus. For what? To humiliate me? You'll be a laughingstock, a pariah. Her voice was raw, with a desperation that was almost pitiable, if not for the years of deceit that had brought us to this point. She was still fighting, still trying to find a way to wound me, to make me stop, clinging to the notion of reputation as if it were a life raft in a tsunami. The irony, of course, was that my reputation, whatever it was, had already been silently eroded by her actions over the past year. I was merely bringing the rot into the light. My reputation, Elena? I asked, my voice calm, cutting through her tirade. A small, humorless smile touched my lips. That's rich, truly rich, coming from you, standing there amidst the ruins of your own meticulously crafted image. My reputation isn't the one currently going down in spectacular multimedia flames, broadcast live to 200 of our closest acquaintances, and I'm sure soon to be the stuff of legend on every social media platform in the city. I paused, letting my gaze drift over the guests, many of whom were indeed holding up their phones, their faces illuminated by the small screens, a sea of digital witnesses. And speaking of broadcasts and things that tend to tarnish one's good name, I continued, my voice taking on a new, even more dangerous edge. I'm not the one who conveniently forgot to delete those rather passionate and incredibly detailed voice messages you left for David on his private, supposedly secure voicemail. The ones you sent when you mistakenly thought I was on a transatlantic flight to Hong Kong, completely incommunicado for 15 hours? Elena's eyes widened further, if that were even possible, a new wave of sheer, unadulterated terror washing over her features. She knew exactly which messages I meant. Oh, yes, I confirmed, nodding slowly. The ones where you describe, in rather breathless, graphic tones, your profound anticipation for your next secret rendezvous, and where you mock my predictable schedule and my utter cluelessness. I have them queued up right here on my phone, Elena. The audio quality is surprisingly good, very clear. Perhaps the audience would appreciate a little auditory evidence to complement the visual presentation. A multisensory experience, if you will. Just say the word. I held up my phone, and for a moment I genuinely considered pressing play. The silence that fell was absolute, save for the distant chirping of oblivious birds. The ornate, three-tiered fountain in the center of the country club's main courtyard, visible just beyond the terrace balustrade, gurgled merrily, its cascading water a ridiculously cheerful counterpoint to the frozen tableau of public disgrace unfolding before it. The late afternoon sun caught the spray, creating fleeting, ironic rainbows. Elena stood rigid in the security guard's light grasp, her face a canvas of utter desolation. Her eyes darted wildly around the terrace, no longer blazing with defiance, but wide with a dawning, all-encompassing horror. She saw them then, truly saw them, not just as a crowd, but as individuals. Mrs. Albright, the doyen of her book club, mouth agape, clutching her pearls as if to ward off evil spirits, her parents, her mother openly weeping into her father's shoulder, her father looking gray and broken, his earlier crimson fury replaced by a profound, unutterable shame. Mr. Henderson, her boss, his expression one of grim disapproval, already mentally distancing himself and his company from the unfolding scandal. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere she looked, were the raised smartphones, their small, dark lenses pointed directly at her, like a firing squad of digital accusers, each one recording, documenting, preserving her utter humiliation for posterity. Every carefully cultivated connection, every painstakingly built bridge of social advancement was not just burning, but being gleefully incinerated and uploaded to the cloud. This wasn't just a private disaster, it was a public crucifixion, and she was realizing with devastating clarity that there would be no resurrection. The realization finally broke her. A low, animalistic moan escaped her lips, a sound of pure, abject despair. I let the moment hang, allowing the full weight of her public ruin to settle upon her. Then, with a calm deliberateness that felt almost anticlimactic after the preceding fireworks, I stepped forward, pulling a neatly folded sheaf of papers from my inner jacket pocket. The crisp, legal-sized documents felt cool and substantial in my hand. I extended them towards her. "Here you go, Elena," I said, my voice quiet but carrying clearly in the renewed, breathless silence. "A little light reading for later. Consider it your party favor." She flinched as if the papers themselves were coated in acid, her eyes refusing to meet mine. It was Sarah who stepped smoothly into the breach. She took the documents from my hand and turned to Elena, her expression professionally neutral, but her eyes holding a glint of something that might have been grim satisfaction for a debt repaid. "Elena Morrison," Sarah stated, her voice firm and clear, each word a legal nail in the coffin of their marriage. "Also known, for the purposes of this action, as Elena Thorne. By the power vested in me as an officer of the court of this state, you are hereby served with a summons and complaint for dissolution of marriage, filed this morning in the Superior Court. Case number DFL 2025-004872. You have 30 days to respond." She gently placed the papers into Elena's unresisting, trembling hand. The crowd collectively exhaled, a sound like wind rushing through a graveyard,